Welcome to Novel Pavilion, your destination for captivating Chinese historical romance novels featuring strong, epic heroines, including our original stories. Get ready for tales of love, power, and triumph. The general returned victorious with a woman and wanted to grant her the position of primary wife. I presented the divorce letter, but he thought I was just being ridiculous. How can you be so jealous? I pushed the divorce letter forward again and spoke helplessly. It's not that. It's that I already have someone in my heart. The general. What exactly are you causing a fuss about? Peng Feiyang's face was dark, as if it could drip with water. I looked innocent and pushed the divorce letter forward a few more times. I'm not making a fuss. The girl beside him stepped forward to smooth things over. It's all my fault. Making elder sister and husband have misunderstandings. I should leave. Peng Feiyang protectively pushed her behind him, glaring at me. It's just a position of primary wife with Ninger, and yet you can't accept her like this. The power in the household is still in your hands. What more are you unsatisfied with? You jealous woman. You even want to threaten me with a divorce. Ding Ming gently tugged at his sleeve from behind. As long as I stay by the general's side, I don't need a title. Although she said this, her tearful expression made Peng Feiyang feel even more heartbroken. Ninger, how could I bear to do this? We have already secretly vowed to be together for life. You are my wife. That night in the barracks, you were already wronged. Don't worry, your husband will make it right for you. Watching the two of them swear eternal love, I only felt they were crazy, as if they couldn't understand human speech. Just as we were at a stalemate, someone from the palace came to announce a decree. The voice of the chief eunuch was sharp and grating. General Peng won a great victory in battle. Tonight the palace will host a grand feast to welcome him back. Peng Feiyang happily received the decree, then turned to me and said, "You don't need to come tonight. This general is informing you, not discussing with you. Today I'll be taking a Ning into the palace, to ask His Majesty to grant her the title of primary wife. You'd better deal with it yourself." With that, the two of them swaggered away. How could that be? If he doesn't let me into the palace, how am I supposed to deliver the divorce letter? If that one finds out, there'll be another scene. We had agreed that the day Peng Feiyang returned would be the day I divorced him, so that night, I secretly went to the banquet. When I took my seat, Peng Feiyang's eyes nearly popped out. He grabbed my wrist hard under the table. His strength was a little frightening. "This is the palace. You can't be fooling around. You jealous shrew. You secretly followed just to ruin my marriage with a Ning. I never realized before you could be so unreasonable." I shook him off with force, only to feel that he dirted my sleeve. "You'd better behave yourself," he threatened in this way. The emperor sat in the grand hall. The orioles sang and the swallows danced, creating a lively atmosphere. "General, you have achieved numerous military victories. What kind of reward do you desire?" He's coming, he's finally here." Peng Feiyang's face lit up with joy, and he raised his hand to pull the woman by his side forward. Kneeling in the center of the main hall, in front of all the officials, he spoke up. "I report to your Majesty, I am willing to exchange my military achievements for a marriage certificate. I have found my one true love at the frontier, and I wish for your Majesty to elevate her to the position of primary wife. From now on, I will strive even harder to serve the country, working until I die." The court fell into complete silence, and the emperor remained silent for a long time. Peng Feiyang's confident smile started to fade, his forehead breaking out in fine beads of sweat. After a long while, a sigh came from the high hall. The emperor's tone was full of disappointment. "Granted." All the officials in the court whispered to each other. Peng Feiyang's face became somewhat awkward. It was because, 3 years ago, he had also made such a promise to the emperor in the court. "Your Majesty, Aunt Gu and my mother arranged a marriage for me and Liani when we were young. Now that the Gu family is in decline, I dare to request your Majesty to grant the marriage, and I will not disappoint your trust." However, on the night of the grand wedding, before the wedding night was even consummated, he hurriedly left for the battlefield. In just 3 years, things have changed, and so have the people. Kneeling in front of the palace, he pointed at another woman, expressing his love. Even His Majesty couldn't bear to watch. Peng Feiyang felt his pride wounded, but at least His Majesty didn't say much, and he hurriedly took the girl by his side and was about to leave quickly. At that moment, I stood up from the dining table and knelt in front of the main hall, beside Peng Feiyang. His face was filled with shock. He gritted his teeth and angrily hissed at me. "This is the imperial court. You are just a woman. How dare you bring the palace schemes here? Quickly get out." I pretended not to hear, lowered my head, and kowtowed. The sound was light but clear. "Your Majesty, this humble daughter of the court has an uninvited request, and I hope your Majesty will grant it." The entire court was in an uproar. The bright yellow figure paused, and a hint of interest mixed with the authoritative voice. "Oh, what do you wish to ask? The general and Miss Ning have deep feelings for each other. How dare I disturb them? I humbly request a divorce." The hall once again fell into a deathly silence. I lifted my head slightly, neither servile nor arrogant, and locked eyes with the man on the high platform. Peng Feiyang's arm forcefully grabbed me. "Are you crazy?" He looked up again at the emperor, whose expression was unreadable, cold sweat soaking his clothes. "Your Majesty, it is my fault. I failed to manage my own affairs, causing a farce. I will take her down now." But I remained unmoving, kneeling again. "I hope your Majesty can see that I, Gu Liani, only have my family in mind. Please fulfill my wish. This commoner truly does not want to waste her life beside someone who does not love me." At this moment, Uncle Lu Jia, who had once been a colleague of my elder brother, stood up. "Your Majesty, the Gu family all died in battle for the country. Only the youngest daughter, Gu Liani, remains. 3 years ago, General Peng Feiyang personally promised to marry her. Today was supposed to be his welcome banquet. Yet he brings a concubine and wants to elevate her to a primary wife. Such behavior is truly disgraceful. Liani, this girl, has grown up under my watch. Seeing her suffer such humiliation, I am deeply pained. If General Gu were to know his most cherished daughter has been treated like this, he would never rest in peace. I hope your Majesty, in consideration of the late General Gu, will allow this one time for the young lady." Peng Feiyang's face looked extremely ugly, and he glared angrily at Uncle Lu. "Lu Jia, this is my family matter. What are you meddling in?" Uncle Lu Jia let out a sneer without showing any weakness. "Liani would rather be free than suffer humiliation in your household. Anyway, everyone knows that you have no relationship with her. Yet you, General Peng, were the one who first wronged someone and still act so arrogantly." Peng Feiyang's flopping actions have already made many martial generals look down on him. My father and older brother already had an excellent reputation among the martial generals. Since they died fighting for the country 5 years ago, their names have been deeply etched in everyone's hearts. Those who used to be colleagues with my father and older brother all stepped forward to support me. The emperor, holding his forehead, looked somewhat helpless. "Do you know that people's words can be terrifying? As a woman who was abandoned, even if the whole world knows that he left on the day of the grand wedding and you had no time as a married couple, it still damages your reputation, and it will be difficult for you to marry a good man again. Have you thought this through?" I fixed my gaze, and bowed again. I begged the emperor to grant it. The emperor nodded in agreement. From the heavy breathing of Peng Feiyang beside me, I could tell he was probably in a bad mood. Shouldn't my allowing them to be together in love be a joyful thing? Just then, a deep male voice came from behind me. My head buzzed. How could I have forgotten about him? The child is quiet, clearly up to mischief. As expected, the next second, I heard the familiar tone of playful arrogance. "Today's so lively. Everyone is either proposing or getting divorced. Then this prince also demands one." I gently rubbed my forehead. The man on the court straightened up slightly, his tone filled with some joy. "Oh, which girl does Feng Lan fancy?" The footsteps drew nearer, and I looked at the man who had already stood by my side, dressed in dark clothes. His demeanor was one of elegance and grace, yet his words were carefree and casual. "Reporting to your Majesty, this subject fancies Miss Liani." The entire hall was shocked, and the emperor was the angriest. He immediately threw the teacup in his hand at us, and when the emperor was angry, everyone trembled and fell to their knees. "Your Majesty, please calm down." The man beside me, however, didn't care at all, and took the opportunity to pat my shoulder comfortingly when no one was looking. "What nonsense are you saying? This is someone else's wife. I didn't care about it before, but this time." King Qi knelt down slowly, not afraid to retort. "Your Majesty just allowed her divorce. Now she's a free woman, isn't she?" The emperor choked. "Do you know how much this would damage the girl's reputation? And moreover, he would never allow his own younger brother to marry a divorced woman, even if it wasn't my fault. What kind of woman doesn't his brother have? He just has to go against him in everything." The emperor only felt like his head was about to explode. "She's the one I fancy. How could her reputation be ruined?" "I don't care. You promised me that if I had a girl I liked you'd definitely grant me the marriage. Now that you've become the emperor you're going back on your word." Everyone's hearts were in their throats, afraid that even breathing too heavily would cost them their heads. The always composed ruler of a nation lost his temper for the first time, sweeping everything off the table and hurling bowls and plates down at us from above the hall. Prince Ji leaned slightly to shield me from the flying shards of broken porcelain. "If Imperial brother won't allow it, then I simply won't marry at all. Get out." Get out, get out. The emperor was so provoked by his words. He turned, flicked his sleeve and left, even clutching his chest as he went. Looked like he was really pissed off. I looked at him speechlessly. Didn't we agree to wait a while before bringing it up? But he flashed me a triumphant smile, like a child waiting to be praised. Forget it. It's already happened. Once the emperor left, the banquet didn't last much longer before it dispersed. I had just stepped out of the palace gates when hurried footsteps sounded behind me. Turning back, it was actually Peng Feiyang, who had been playing dead ever since the emperor got angry just now. He strode quickly toward me, with Ding Ning stumbling and staggering behind him. When he got close, he yanked my hand up, his face twisted. Gu Lianyi, you've really got some skill. You actually hooked up with Prince Qi. Was today's divorce something you planned long ago? Were you already fooling around with him, you slutty woman? I flung his hand away, staring at him coldly. You were gone at the border for half a year, and yet you already slept with Ding Ning. When the news from the border came, I hadn't even met Prince Qi yet. At that time, I had already drafted the divorce letter. You can ask the clan elders to confirm it. From that moment on, I had already moved out of the general's mansion. Today I came back just to inform you. I only felt that I must have been blind before, to marry such a man. And now you call me shameless. You're the last person qualified to say that. After all, you betrayed first, and I only found another man after you. He let out a cold laugh, his eyes full of mockery. Another man? Do you really think Prince Qi is any good? You, a divorced woman, a used shoe. Do you really think he'll treat you sincerely? In the general's mansion you only had Ding Ning. Once you marry into Prince Qi's household, don't you know he'll still have his princess and his concubines? You don't actually think he'll give you the position of primary wife, do you? You really are a slut. Just a little hook of someone's finger and you take the bait so easily. Stupid. At that moment, a sinister voice suddenly came from behind, startling Peng Feiyang, who was in the middle of his heated speech. General Peng, I truly didn't know you were such a petty man, to slander me right in front of the woman I admire. No need for you to worry, since I've asked for Lianyi's hand, I will of course make her my main wife. Peng Feiyang ignored his shock and immediately retorted, Prince Qi can joke around with women all he wants, but don't try that trick to fool this general. How could His Majesty possibly allow Prince Qi to marry a divorced woman as his main wife? That was his clever little plan, because he knew that once divorced, my reputation as a woman would already be ruined. But he didn't expect to run into Feng Lan, this tough nut. He fanned himself, laughing recklessly, his eyes quietly fixed on me, like stars in the dark night. Then no need for General Peng to worry. I'll find a way to make my royal brother agree. You just go on enjoying your deep affection with Miss Ning. Unable to outtalk him, Peng Feiyang grabbed my arm and tried to pull me forward. Before I could even move, Feng Lan's face darkened and he struck out with one palm, dislocating his arm. Peng Feiyang's face twisted as he clutched his arm. Prince Qi, you act so unruly. And this is still inside the Imperial Palace. You dare lay hands on a general who just earned military merit. Aren't you afraid the emperor will be wary of you? Feng Lan, annoying as ever, kept fanning himself with that shabby fan of his. He smiled as he replied, same as I said before, General Peng, you don't need to worry about matters between me and my imperial brother. As for you, you and Miss Lianyi already divorced long ago, and my imperial brother has approved it too. Have you been stationed at the border so long you can't even understand plain words anymore? Miss Lianyi hasn't lived in the general's manor for a long time. Besides, you already have a beauty by your side now, so what are you abducting her back to your manor for? If you ask me what I admire most about Feng Lan, it's definitely that mouth of his. When I once had an argument with someone, he showed me just how sharp he could be. Looking at him now, back then he was actually holding back. Peng Feiyang was so furious he gnashed his teeth and cursed, pointing at my nose. You loose, shameless woman. Then he pointed at Feng Lan's nose. But when he saw Feng Lan's chilly look, he finally shut his mouth, dragged Ding Ning away in anger, and left. Feng Lan and I walked side by side down the long alley on the way back. With Feng Lan's strength, I never needed to make a move at all. I let out a small sigh, looking at the starry sky. A trace of helplessness welled up in my heart. You really don't have to fall out so badly with the emperor for my sake. Just now in the imperial court, I was afraid he might order your head chopped off. The summer wind was a bit hot and restless. He picked up a fan by my side and gently fanned me. His tone was careless. Elder brother emperor wouldn't do that. Then he went on staring at me again. But you, when will you agree to me? I pressed my lips together, trying to make him see reality. His Majesty won't allow you to marry me. He shook his head. Lianyi, I only need to know your heart. You don't need to worry about royal brother. As long as you love me, I can settle everything. I don't know where his confidence came from. Early this morning, just as I woke up, I heard the steward in the residence report. Prince Chi has already been waiting for a long time. Rubbing my head, I walked into the main hall, only to see him dozing in the tea room, his head nodding off again and again. I couldn't help but find it funny. Why did you come so early? Hearing my movements, he lifted his eyes to look at me, his gaze full of delight. Lieni, then he answered my question. Of course it's to go divorce with you. I just felt my head was about to explode. Why should I go with you to do the divorce? You're an outsider. He looked a bit smug. No one will say anything. Last night I already spread General Peng's military secrets all over the streets and alleys. It cost quite a bit of silver. You know, now the common folk everywhere think you got the short end of the stick. For you to be so fiercely pursued by Prince Chi after the divorce, this has already become a role model in the hearts of many women. I couldn't resist him. Anyway, I never thought reputation was that important, but I didn't expect that after stepping outside. I really didn't see any pointing fingers or gossiping looks. He walked by my side, his head held high, like a proud little colt. Early in the morning we knocked loudly on the gates of the general's manor. Peng Feiyang looked like he had just gotten up, stormed into the main hall with a sour face, his hair not even combed. His eyes looked like they were about to spit fire. Gu Lieni, you're really that impatient? Coming so early in the morning to drag the clan elder here for a divorce. The man beside me shook the fan in his hand and took a sip of tea. It was I who went to her manor and dragged her up. General Peng, you don't know, this lord didn't sleep all night. I was just too excited. After saying that, he spat out a mouthful of tea dregs. Peh, what awful stuff. How many years has this been sitting around? He muttered softly, but everyone present heard it clearly. There isn't a single good thing in General Peng's household. I suspect he's making a veiled jab. Peng Feiyang's face darkened even further. The divorce decree had already been submitted to the clan elder 2 years ago. Both sides had also completed their financial audits, so everything was progressing very smoothly. The only thing that wasn't going smoothly was that Peng Feiyang kept staring at me from the side, his gaze as if poisoned. What does that have to do with me? I heard that envoys from the western regions came to offer advice, and both countries exchanged many rare treasures. His Majesty held a grand banquet in the palace, inviting all the noble families to join in the excitement. I understood in my heart. The emperor probably couldn't make any headway with Feng Lan, so he wanted me to take action from my side. In the end, I couldn't defy the imperial command. Just as I entered the palace, I bumped into Lu's older sister. She happily ran towards me. Lieni, long time no see. Then, she looked at me with some sympathy. You've become much thinner. We chatted and laughed as we walked forward, and when I looked up, I bumped into 2 people ahead. Ding Ning was standing on tiptoe, adjusting Peng Feiyang's clothes. Sister Lu spat and looked at him with disgust. Really shameless, just a mistress. I heard that Peng Feiyang still plans to hold another wedding for her. Now bringing such a person to this kind of occasion when she has no name or status. I lowered my head as if I didn't hear it. She glanced at me with a bit of sympathy and said no more, but it was clear that Peng Feiyang also noticed us, and he pulled Miss Nian a little closer to him. I couldn't help but get another glare from Sister Lu. Under my repeated glares, Feng Lan ultimately didn't dare to squeeze next to me and instead looked at me pitifully from across the room. The banquet began, and a thick fence was set up on the vast open ground. The beauties presented from the western regions were graceful, their seductive glances like threads. After the dance, many of the men from prestigious families secretly blushed, and the women lowered their heads one after another. The western regions are indeed open-minded, allowing women to wear so little. Watching the Han women shyly covering their faces, the little princess of the western regions, Lingyan, who came along, curled the corner of her mouth into a mocking smile. Her tone was cool. Han women are truly useless. The western region envoy slightly bowed and apologized. Your Majesty, our princess has been free-spirited since she was young and speaks without respect. Please do not take offense, Your Majesty. But there was not a trace of regret in her words. The emperor's cheek was slightly cold. This was a blatant provocation. The Lu family's eldest sister had a fiery temper and stepped forward. She spoke with a stern tone to Ling Anda. What a West region princess, speaking so disrespectfully. Is this the upbringing of the West region? Ling Anda didn't even lift her head, letting out a light sneer. I only spoke some truths and yet someone can't sit still. How about we have a competition? The Lu family's eldest sister's face turned bright red. What could I possibly compare to you? A little girl. Ling Anda's tone was filled with disdain. None of the men in my country can match me. how dare you step forward? I can see from your aura that you're someone who practices martial arts. How about a simple archery contest? The Lu family's eldest sister froze. Her skills were fine enough to show off in the army, but in a competition, she wouldn't stand out. Seeing Ling Anda so confident, she felt even more intimidated, but now it was too late to back down. The next second, I, completely bewildered, was pushed out. My archery is indeed lacking, but my younger sister's archery skills are unmatched by most men in the army. I had a face full of question marks, and she gave me an awkward smile, whispering to me, I've known your level since we grew up together. Please, Lieni. The Emperor's gaze also slightly brightened as he stared at me. That's right. Since I was young, I studied martial arts with Sister Lu, alongside my father and many generals. In our country, the confinement of women isn't actually that strict. Some women from military families would follow their relatives into the army camps when they were young, just to visit or join the fun. But when they grow up, that's definitely not allowed. I was the most talented one among them. Uncle Lu Jia once patted my head and laughed as he spoke to my father. If Lieni were a man, our country would probably have another genius general. But I haven't touched a bow and arrow in a long time. I can't quite gauge the opponent's skill at the moment. Before I could speak to agree, the Western region envoy saw a weaker woman being pushed out. He immediately made a swift decision and said, This is boring. Why don't we set a wager instead? Not only is he trying to slap us in the face, but he's also looking to steal our money. My expression grew slightly cold. My father and older brother died in battle, and the one thing our family lacks is the courage to defend our homeland. How do we compete? Whoever can shoot the apple on the head of someone 10 meters away wins. The Western region envoy was the first to wager 100 gold ingots. I nodded. Feng Lan was the first to speak. I wager 1,000 ingots. The Emperor's face turned black beside us. Where did you get all this money? Feng Lan awkwardly raised a fan to cover his face. Of course he didn't have any, but if he lost and couldn't pay up, elder brother the Emperor would definitely cover for him. Besides, he trusted Lieni. With him taking the lead, we couldn't lose face. All the officials of this dynasty placed their bets on me. My heart also tightened a little. Peng Feiyang didn't bet. He spent all his money preparing Ding Ming's dowry, and the Emperor glared at him several times. Everything was ready. The envoy stood 10 meters away with an apple on his head. Ling Anda curled her lips into a confident smile, loosed the arrow the moment it was on the string. After a few shrieks, the apple was barely shattered. I wiped the sweat off my hands, and when I looked up I met Feng Lan's gaze, his eyes shining bright like a well-behaved puppy. I felt a little more at ease, drew the bow. My mind was full of father's guidance, and my heart slowly calmed down. After a few gusts of wind, I heard the crowd's exclamations. Hit, hit. Ling Anda's face froze a little. She truly hadn't expected there would actually be a Han woman who could shoot arrows. The envoy from the western regions understood her expression, and spoke again. Since one round can't decide the winner, then let's have another. The next round will be blindfolded bird shooting. At this moment my heart settled, my fingers rubbing over the arrow feather. If I'd felt a bit flustered with the apple on the head earlier, now I was certain of victory. I used to love shooting the birds in the sky. My father and older brother would always criticize me. Girls shouldn't have such a strong killing intent. It was Lingyan who started first. She closed her eyes, raised her hand, and put on an eye mask. She drew the bowstring, and in the next second, a white bird descended straight from the sky. The crowd gasped. Even among our martial generals, only a few could do such a thing. Under her provocative gaze, I put on the eye mask. Everything around me seemed to quiet down. Only the sound of feathers flapping their wings could be heard. Time passed second by second, and someone in the crowd had already started to stir. Isn't Gu Lieni unable to do it? In the next second, the arrow was shot straight out. Sister Lu's excited voice came. Lieni won. Lieni won. I took off the eye mask, and of course, I knew I had won, because just now, I had been listening to the sound of feathers flapping, and finally, I waited for 2 overlapping ones. A double hit. Not only did I want to win, but I wanted to win for the honor of our country, and win beautifully. The envoy from the western regions looked grim. The officials were all smiling broadly. The Emperor's gaze softened a lot, his face glowing with joy. Feng Lan, like a fool, raised his thumb at me and kept praising me. Lieni is amazing, so amazing. In the end, His Majesty couldn't stand it and forcefully pressed his wrist down. I was amused by his silly stubbornness and chuckled. The next second, I met Peng Feiyang's gaze. The look in his eyes was indescribably complicated. After the banquet ended, Lu Jia and I had barely taken a few steps when we ran into Peng Feiyang and Ding Ning again. Lu Jia's face darkened, muttering in her heart that this was bad luck, just like a plague god, bumping into them everywhere. But this time Peng Feiyang actually walked toward us. How come you never said before that you had such martial skills? I looked at him, a bit amused. Because you never paid attention. Ding Ning's face was a little pale. She tugged at his sleeve and softly called out to him, "Husband." He acted as if he hadn't heard, just staring at me with blazing eyes, just like the burning look he had the first time he saw me. But I was no longer that girl who would get flustered and moved. I softly said to him, "General, you're blocking the way." Then I lifted my feet and left. Feng Lan, like a fool, brought those 2 birds to my manor and told the steward to roast them for him. He said they were spoils of war from our country. Thinking back to when I first met him, how could I have thought he was cold and hard to approach? I still remember when we first met. It was when Peng Feiyang had just been raising a concubine outside and the news had already spread back to the capital. Many women from military families had heard the secret stories from the army. At that time, I ran into the daughter of a colleague who had a past grudge with my father. She mocked me, and I've always been a bit of a quiet person. My father said my clumsy personality really didn't seem like something a girl would have. I couldn't argue back, so I planned to leave first. But then, in the next second, a carriage came straight toward us. The woman was so scared she fell to the ground, and I was also pulled down with her. Sitting on the ground, a man lifted the curtain of the carriage and stepped down. His face was cold and noble. "The young lady of the Gu family, how come you're so fragile now? I heard that there was a famous lantern show in the city, and Feng Lan insisted on dragging me to go see it. I have to admit, Lu's sister was somewhat right about one thing. Peng Feiyang is like a plague god. As soon as he steps outside, there's no way to avoid him." I looked at the man not far away, who was about to insert a gold hairpin into the hair of the woman in front of him. "Their grand wedding is coming soon. Peng Feiyang brought her here to pick out her dowry." Feng Lan beside me spoke with a somewhat cold tone. "Liani, when will you accept this king's proposal?" I didn't look at him, but I could already guess his expression. "Even if I agree, His Majesty will not agree." He looked at me somewhat sadly. "Liani, you always use this to brush me off. I've told you, there's no way my older brother would refuse what I want. Even if I want his throne, my older brother would probably just hand it over." I was shocked and hurriedly looked around. "Luckily, it's just the 2 of you here. Don't ever say such things again." Since we've divorced, I no longer had any interest in watching the drama. I turned around, ready to leave, but was called back by Peng Feiyang. "Liani." I turned around, and he was already in front of me. Ding Ning was still standing there, stunned, holding the hairpin in his hand. I frowned, feeling like he was being a little strange. I even vaguely detected some joy in his tone. "General Peng, is there something? With Feng Lan here, I never need to speak." At this moment, Peng Feiyang seemed to have just noticed Feng Lan. "Why is Prince Qi here?" He turned his head and looked at me. "Gu Liani, how can you, a woman, be out in the middle of the night with a man?" My expression also turned cold. "What I do with whom is none of your concern. General, we've already divorced. This is not something you should interfere with." His expression carried a hint of slight anger, looking at me as if he couldn't help but feel disappointed. "I came with good intentions to warn you. A woman like you will have a terrible reputation." Feng Lan retorted without hesitation. "Can your reputation be worse than mine? General Peng, are you living with your ears covered? How have people been spreading rumors about you? You probably don't know, do you?" Peng Feiyang seemed to have reached his limit. "Does King Qi think I don't know where all those rumors are coming from?" Feng Lan smiled in a somewhat provoking manner. "Good, at least you know. I was worried you didn't." I didn't want to pay attention to their childish argument, so I turned to leave. At that moment, a commotion came from not far away. "Prince, there's an assassin." In the blink of an eye, a group of people in black arrived in front of us, clearly heading our way. Feng Lan's guards went into alert mode, and Feng Lan also stopped smiling. Peng Feiyang's face became serious, and he pulled me over forcefully. "Liani, I'll cover you. Quickly find a place to hide." Feng Lan slapped his hand away. "Your wife is over there. Take your filthy paws off me." Not far away, Ding Ning was on the verge of collapsing. Looking pitiful, Peng Feiyang stood stunned for a moment, seemingly not expecting to react like this, and looked down at his hand in a daze. Feng Lan's expression darkened, and he drew his short sword from his waist, engaging in combat with the intruder. Peng Feiyang gave me a deep glance, then turned and headed toward Ding Ning. The assassin was clearly after me. I could feel it. I was retreating under Feng Lan's protection, with no weapon in my hand. I had just dodged a sword strike when, in the next moment, another sword came straight for my heart. "He wants my life." The sound of the sharp knife piercing flesh echoed in my ears, and blood flowed steadily from Feng Lan's shoulder. Feng Lan, I cried out in shock. He actually used his shoulder to block that sword for me. He kicked the assassin over, then stepped on him to pin him down. The emperor hurried over. He nearly stumbled as he entered the room, and the assassin had already confessed that it was Princess Lingyan from the western region who sent him. She thought I had caused her to lose face in front of everyone. She thought I was just a helpless orphan, and killing me would relieve her anger. But unexpectedly, Feng Lan protected me with his life. The emperor's face turned terrifyingly dark. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. If anything happens to my brother, I will make you pay with your life. My mind was in a daze, and Feng Lan's resolute expression as he rushed toward me to block the sword kept flashing in my mind. The next second, the man on the bed coughed softly a few times, his voice faint. Brother, you can't scare her. Seeing him wake up, the emperor finally let out a long sigh of relief. However, Feng Lan treated a chicken feather as a command and threw a tantrum, taking advantage of being a patient. He threatened the emperor. This is the first time I've seen someone's expression so vivid. I demand to marry Lian Yi. Okay, it should be next month. Okay, it should be earlier than Peng Feiyang. Okay, I want to prepare hundreds of boxes of betrothal gifts for Lian Yi and announce it to the whole city. Brother, I'm running out of money. Can you give me some allowance? The emperor gritted his teeth. Feng Lan, don't go too far. Feng Lan lay on the sickbed, smiling cunningly, showing his shamelessness. Luckily, no bones were hurt, and he recovered quickly. After only a few months, his shoulder had already scabbed over. He supported himself and went with me to the palace to ask the emperor for the imperial edict, to grant the marriage. The emperor's gaze was heavy, and without saying much, he had the already prepared imperial edict brought up. He looked at me, his tone indescribably complex. Gu Lianyi, I only have this one brother. He's been simple-minded since childhood and has no bad intentions. You must treat him well. If you didn't know better, you'd think I married Feng Lan. I reluctantly agreed, but as I turned, I accidentally caught a glimpse of a painting hanging in the corner. The painting had been there for years, clearly well preserved by someone. I was startled and quickly lowered my head. On the way out of the palace, my mind was filled with thoughts, and in the end, I couldn't help but ask, Feng Lan, the painting in His Majesty's bedchamber. He cast a faint glance at me, his eyes full of praise. Lianyi is so smart. You figured it out. I nodded. This was a royal secret. I really shouldn't ask too much, but I didn't expect Feng Lan to not take it seriously at all. That's my mother consort. My royal brother likes my mother consort. I was shocked, feeling a headache from his occasional outrageous words. I looked around. Luckily it was just the two of us here. Seeing that I was interested, Feng Lan continued with a smile. What are you afraid of? My mother doesn't like him. And besides, my mother has long passed away. From Feng Lan's words, I finally understood why he was so unrestrained. His Majesty was born to a palace maid and was not well regarded in the palace. He is 8 years younger than Feng Lan. When Feng Lan was 5 years old, Xu Fei, that is, Feng Lan's mother, I accidentally saw the 13-year-old Emperor Feng Yin. At that time, he was beaten and scolded by the palace maids. A prince living even worse than a eunuch. Concubine Xu was kind-hearted, so she immediately took him back to her palace to raise him. Concubine Xu was the only light for Feng Yin in this palace, but as the half-grown boy gradually matured, he developed strange feelings for his father's concubine, his little mother. The day Concubine Xu saw the painting, it was pouring rain. She drove Feng Yin out of her sleeping quarters. The woman's face showed an indescribable complexity. Go, I will cover for you. It won't delay your struggle for the throne, but you need not see me again. Feng Yin didn't want to fight for the throne, but Concubine Xu really never saw him again. However, the pure-hearted Concubine Xu, in this deep palace, no longer had Feng Yin, who was like a venomous snake, sitting by her side. Feng Lan was still young, and not long after, Concubine Xu was unknowingly killed by someone. Feng Lan lowered his gaze slightly, as if lost in memory. Since that day, His Majesty has rarely smiled. He cleared all obstacles, cut off all siblings, just to climb to that position. He didn't know who killed his mother, so after taking the throne, he killed all of his father's concubines. He was said to be addicted to killing, scorned by everyone in the world, but when facing me, he is still that older brother. He often calls me to the palace, and most of the time, he just stares at me in a daze. He told me more than once, if I wanted it, he'd gladly hand over the throne. Feng Lan chuckled, but I'm really not interested in this. I know he's telling the truth. I look the most like mother consort. He can't bear for me to suffer even the slightest grievance. Being a prince is easy for me, so why bother taking on that exhausting position of his? As the emperor, even without taking a concubine, someone will be sent to me. I only want to be with Lieni. I don't want to marry anyone else. I sucked in a cold breath. The prince falls in love with the empress, and you tell me about such chaotic matters. His expression was quite something. But didn't I fall in love with you even before you were separated from your spouse? Such morally bankrupt things often happen in the royal family. Faced with his honesty, I was momentarily speechless. Feng Lan's expression seemed to be proud. Lieni, if you follow me, I guarantee you'll have endless riches and glory. Just enjoy it secretly. I benefit from Mother Empress's favor, and you benefit from mine. How wonderful, how wonderful. The grand wedding is approaching. Feng Lan heard from somewhere that for ordinary families, the bride and groom are not allowed to meet before the wedding, otherwise it's bad luck, so he stopped meeting with me. I ran into Peng Feiyang again when I went out to buy rouge. He quietly looked at me. The rumors outside were loud, and I'm sure he's heard that I'm about to marry Prince Ji. I had nothing to say to him. After all, our current relationship didn't require pleasantries, but to my surprise, when I was about to leave, he blocked my way. He pulled me into a nearby alley, and I was startled. Peng Feiyang's tone even carried a hint of pain. Lieni, you're so heartless. It hasn't even been half a year since our divorce, and now you're marrying someone else. Did you never love me from the start? I looked at him and could only find it funny. He's always like this, allowing himself to set fires but never letting the common folk light lamps. I bumped into him in front of the shop where they were sewing bridal gowns. Could it be that he's here for a walk? Noticing my gaze, he glanced behind him, his tone suddenly becoming a bit dry. Lieni, if I told you that I truly liked you when I asked for your hand, would you believe me? I didn't speak, and he continued talking to himself, smiling with a self-mocking curve of his lips. The day the emperor granted you to me in marriage, I didn't sleep a wink. On the day of the grand wedding, when the military order came, my heart was full of reluctance. I thought to myself that when I return, I would live a good life with you, but the border is in chaos, slaughter and death everywhere. Every time I close my eyes all I see are corpses. I had no heart left to think of you. I saved Ding Ning. She stayed by my side every day, and I gradually forgot about your existence. I thought I loved her with all my heart, but whenever I saw you walking with Prince Ji, it felt like worms were gnawing at my heart. The corners of his eyes were a bit bloodshot, his voice also hoarse. Lieni, when you agreed to marry me before, you must have had me in your heart. How could you remarry in less than a year? These days I keep thinking, if I hadn't brought Ding Ning back then, would we still be living well together? I sighed slightly. He was always this hypocritical, pushing all mistakes onto others. Wrong is wrong. No one will wait for you forever. You betrayed your promise to me after only knowing Ding Ning for a few months, just because you thought my Gu family had no one else left, and that leaving you meant I had nowhere better to go. Seeing me with Feng Lan is nothing but your unwillingness festering in your heart. He stayed silent, in the end not saying a single word. I didn't expect Feng Lan to climb through the window that night. Looking at his darkened expression, I found it funny. Didn't you say we couldn't meet on the day of the grand wedding? He turned his back like a sulking child. I left through the window, not the front door, and you're saying it's not my fault. I know you met Peng Feiyang today. Do you still have feelings for him? The more he spoke, the more wronged he felt. From beginning to end it's all just been one-sided on my part. You keep saying you only met me after your divorce, but you don't know. The first time I left the palace at 12 years old, I had already met you, but in the end, I was still a step too late. By the time I found out, you had already been promised by my royal brother to Peng Feiyang. I finally managed to steal you away, but then he just came pestering again. His voice was muffled, as if he was about to cry. I'm really scared. Lieni, you make me so uneasy. I gently placed my palm into his hand. His hand curled slightly, then he turned back with joy. He held my hand tightly in his palm, as if afraid I'd run away. His eyes sparkled in the candlelight. Especially beautiful. You like me too, don't you? I nodded with a faint smile. If it wasn't for love, why would I want to marry him? Just like before, I had also once liked Peng Feiyang. Sometimes he was indeed a bit noisy, but I never found it annoying. Father was right. I really am quiet. I have to admit, my personality is a bit dull, but it seems to match perfectly with Feng Lan, who is blunt and sharp-tongued.